Welcome to Phase 5 in the coding of Canon 3. In this video, what we're going to be doing is creating the HudItem class. Now, if you recall back in the implementation plan for Canon 3, we said that the HudItem class was going to be identical to Canon 2's HudItem class, with the exception of a few small changes. One being the picture box, that goes away and a texture 2D is used in its place, and the second being the draw method. It needs to be changed. In fact, it needs to be changed almost identical to the way we did it in the game item class. So with that, Logan, let's go ahead and create a HudItem class.
Okay, so in Canon 3 now, let's go to our classes folder, add a new item, and this will be our HUD item. Alright.
And now we can steal some code.
Alright, so let's jump over to Canon 2, and let's open up the HUD item from Canon 2, grab all of the code, copy it, go back to Canon 3, select all of the code, and overwrite it.
Okay. Now a few changes. Let's go ahead and delete all those usings out. This is great here. Let's go over to game item. Let's grab all of these usings.
Alright, because we already set up game item with the necessary XNA framework using, so we can just paste those in.
Now let's fix our namespace.
Alright, we want to make sure that namespace, we're working in Canon 3 as our namespace.
Now let's get that picture box out.
Alright, we're no longer using a picture box. Now we're using texture 2D.
Okay, and with the property, we need to fix it as well.
We have the property to access texture, which again needs to be a texture 2D.
Alright, fantastic. Let's go ahead and scroll down to draw now. Now down here in the draw method, we can go ahead and strip all of this out.
So we don't need anything relating to positioning a texture.
Now let's go ahead and jump back over to our game item class and jump down to the draw method. And let's copy that whole section.
Alright, all of the code from within draw in the game item, we'll take that over to HudItem and paste all of that in place.
Oh, and this is beautiful here. Check this out. We'll continue using this particular overloaded method of draw. The only thing we're focused on now is going to be this whole source rectangle area, which we set to null when dealing with game items, because we never need it to sample within the texture, if you will. Even though this is going to be locked to 0, 0, that's still basically what we're doing. We're grabbing just part of it. And what the heck am I talking about? Well, remember with the picture box when we had our lives display, we simply controlled how much of it we were going to show by adjusting its width, and that would show you if you had 1 life or 2 lives left or 3 lives. Same thing here. We're using a source rectangle. We're able to specify exactly where from our source texture we want to draw. So we can go and say start from 0, 0 and move, well, whatever our current width is set to over, and then let's say it's only set over far enough to pick up the picture of 2 of the ships instead of 3. Well, what's going to happen? We're going to see that we only have 2 lives remaining. So all we need to do within the method itself is just change this null to a new rectangle. But we need to create that rectangle.
So let's jump in right below where we had our vectors and make a new rectangle variable. So this will be a rectangle called, let's call it source rectangle. And let's set that to be a new rectangle. Now for this rectangle, we want it to work kind of sort of like a Windows control where we have our origin at top left or 0, 0. So for the rectangle itself, we want to start on the top left side, because that kind of works if you think about it. We need to chop off part of this texture, but we're always chopping off from the left side. We want either all of it, or only 2 of the lives, or only 1 of the lives.
Right.
Now where do we get width from? Well, this is a HUD item. It has a width. So we can plug in this dot width.
And remember, width is set from back over inside our gameplay logic, because each time you get killed, you lose a life, and when you lose a life, we update our display. And remember, we're calculating the width based off of, well, the tile width and how many lives you have. We just multiply that together to come up with a width. So there it is.
Now, of course, we also need a height to finish off the rectangle, so we'll feed in this dot height, and then that rounds off the rectangle. Again, the whole key here with the lives display is the fact that we can adjust the width and have it chop off lives. But draw doesn't take in a width, it takes in an entire rectangle. So we need to feed in a rectangle via source rectangle, which I might as well go ahead and plug in at this point.
Okay.
So we want to take this width, we use that to generate a rectangle, we take that rectangle and plug it into draw.
Now we need to make an adjustment to our origin vector as well, because before we were dealing with the center of the particular item, and we needed to do that with game item. But now that we're working with HUD items, we need to basically deal with 0, 0.
Right, because
upper left.
We don't have an origin in HUD item at all. And again, like you're saying, this is going to behave like a control, so we want to feed in 0, 0 for the origin.
Okay. Or come on, show them the other way they can do it.
Alright, yeah, there is a faster way of doing this. We could do vector2. The type has a preset, if you want to call it that, called 0. You can set it to vector2.0, which will return a vector that has both components set to 0, which is probably more or less what that tooltip just said.
Very good. All right, so do you want to go ahead and, actually, it almost did, word for word. Do you want to go ahead and build and make sure that everything is happy?
All right, let's build. And, here's something interesting.
Oh, yeah, remember, draw needs to take in the sprite batch because, well, we need it for the drawing.
We got a draw from Canon 2 where we weren't using a sprite batch. So we need to feed in a sprite batch. And we want to feed in one called sprite batch, so that satisfies this sprite batch. Now we should be able to build, and everything works.
Beautiful. All right, well, like I said back in the implementation plan, HudItem class was going to look just like Canon 2 with the exception of draw and some very minor changes, and that's what we've done here. We made it, look pretty much identical with the exception of draw. So that is going to wrap up this video. In the next video, we'll go ahead and tie it all together so that we have a functioning heads-up display, lives, and, of course, our click to start. All right, so with that, we've done with this video.